Hello and welcome, I'm Matt James from Gymnastics and I'm back again this week to talk to you about some of the common mistakes that I see with handstand training. Now last week I did get a bit of feedback, so thank you for that. And that feedback is that I should try to smile more, which I've been trying to do since the beginning of this video, and I'm realizing now actually how difficult it is to smile and talk at the same time. So please try it because it's actually quite tough, but I'll do my best. Anyway, on to our common mistakes for the handstand. Number one is more of a myth than a mistake, but I thought it was important to clear this up. And the myth is that you need to be in this perfectly straight position with your legs together. Now this really originates from artistic gymnastics, because the go-to for a handstand is to develop this kind of perfect straight position with your legs together. And that's because it hands over more specifically to that sport. And it does also make sense. It gives you a good line of tension with your joints stacked directly on top of one another. And therefore it's an efficient way to hold a handstand. Now where the myth comes in is more the lower body. So yes, your wrists and shoulders are incredibly important. So it's important that you get that position right, because they create that base of support. But the position of your legs doesn't actually really matter that much. And in fact, having your legs together can actually be more difficult to balance because you're in this more kind of lengthened, elongated position where your legs are further away from your base of support. And that's why for some of you might actually find it easier to hold a handstand with your legs apart, either in this straddle position or a split position, or even bent in a tuck position. Okay, and secondly, if you want to truly master handstands and you want to learn more advanced skills like the press handstand, or ultimately a one-arm handstand, then being proficient in different shapes, such as the straddle and the tuck, also the pike, are very important prerequisites for developing those skills. Okay, the second is trying to make small corrections with the shoulders or the lower body. So there's effectively a hierarchy of corrections. And just to be clear in terms of what I mean by corrections, I'm talking about when you fall out of balance, how do you correct and refine that position of balance? So the majority of corrections are very small and are done using tiny articulations in your wrists. And that's why doing your strength and conditioning exercises for the wrists, such as the palm push-ups, which we do on the floor, are incredibly important. Now, if you fall further out of balance and it's too much for your wrists, because they are a relatively small joint, that's when the shoulders come into play. Okay, so that's when you can start to subtly open and close the shoulder angle, or even potentially bend your arms. Then finally, if you need to make really big corrections, that's when you can start using the lower body to redistribute your weight and rebalance. Okay, so don't worry too much about this point. It's easy to overcomplicate it, and over time, when your awareness improves, you'll start to subconsciously make these corrections naturally anyway. But it's worth highlighting the importance of the wrists in the handstand. 3, not spending time learning how to bail. So a lot of people actually do have the ability to kick up to a handstand, whether they realize it or not. The problem is more the fear of falling that stops them from doing so. So kicking up does take practice and there is a technique to it, but most people will be better suited to just practicing bailing drills. So basically how to fall safely. That's what builds confidence and sometimes gives you the edge for the kick up. And for clarity, bailing is effectively doing a kind of semi-pirouette, so turning to the side, so that you can come down safely. And you can practice that by doing a wall-facing handstand against the wall, start to lean away and then step to the side. Okay, that's just one drill that we use to build confidence, bailing. Number 4 is doing the same thing over and over again. So to be clear on this one, I'm not saying that doing the same drill over and over again is a bad thing. In fact, quite the opposite. It's usually a good thing. You want to stick with the drill consistently until you get really, really good at it before you move on. What I mean here is doing the same mistake over and over again without really taking a step back to think about what you're doing and change something. So let's take an example I see a lot. You come into the gym and start practicing kicking up to a handstand. You fail the first rep, you don't quite get high enough and you fall back down, or you overshoot it and fall over the top. You then do the same again and again and again until you failed 10, 20, 30 reps in the space of, 5 or 10 minutes. Now, the longer you go on, the more tired you get, both mentally and physically, and the less likely you are to succeed. And you might hear sayings like, you need to practice something 1,000 times before you can master it. And although for me those numbers are kind of arbitrary in my opinion, I do agree with the sentiment, but you also need good and what I would call thoughtful practice. Now don't get me wrong, you do need volume, you need to practice a lot, But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's not all about the volume. Do a rep, think about what went wrong. Better still, record yourself or have a coach watch you. Take a breather and then go again. Otherwise, we're kind of just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting to get lucky and get a different result, which we know doesn't really happen. Okay, and then the final thing is analysis paralysis. So you've probably heard this saying many times before. And it's good to understand the basics of handstands, understand how to scale and how to progress, get a good program, but you don't need to be an expert. And by the time you've read 10, 20 different articles, purchased 5 different ebooks or programs or whatever they are, you could have just started practicing. Okay, so understand the basics, have a plan, and make sure that plan is adaptable because you're still finding yourself, right? There's no point in setting certain rep and set schemes if you're just starting out because you need to find out what you can do and find what your baseline is. Okay, but most simply just take action and start practicing. Okay, that's it for this week. So as always, if you have any suggestions or questions that you'd like me to cover, please send them into our Instagram page, which is Jack Gymnastics, or email us on info@jackgymnastics.com. If you want to be notified of videos like this, then please do subscribe. If you don't, then don't subscribe. All right, thank you and goodbye.